Hello everyone, we're here in Beaver Stadium where Penn State just took down Washington 35-6 in the whiteout game to advance to 8-1 on the season now. The Huskies fall to 5-5 on the year. Lyle, I'll let you kick it off with your initial takeaways from the matchup.
Yeah, so obviously whiteout, Penn State crowd was bumping, 9th highest attendance in Beaver Stadium history. Today, crowd was rocking, noise was in full effect, false start calls on Washington's first offensive series, and this was a nice little bounce back effort by Penn State following the loss to Ohio State last week. Tyler Warren, we talk about him all the time, did it again today. Broke a pair of records by Mike Gesicki, single season records for most yardage by a Penn State tight end all time and most receptions by a Penn State tight end all time. And then a pair of rushing touchdowns, both from 2 yards out in a goal line situation. That was eerily similar to last week.
That last week.
Yeah, I said after the first one, I was in the press box, I'm like, oh, where was that last week? Deja vu, possession later. Where was that last week? But also, overall, good stuff. Run game, obviously on top of Tyler Warren's 2 goal line touchdowns. Really efficient tonight after struggling the past 2 games. Patron Allen had a big game. Bo had a rushing touchdown. Nick Singleton played very well. He did leave in the 4th quarter. Did not see him on the sideline. Didn't even see him leave the field. James Franklin, as usual, does not have an update post-game. Probably won't have one on Monday. He said we'll see what he's like on practice on Wednesday. But Corey Smith, true freshman, had his first ever touch, taking it for 8 yards in Singleton's absence. Then a series later, 78 yards down the sideline, went 4 carries for 94 yards. Obviously, Quinn Martin Jr. has played 3 games, dealing with the injury bug a little bit. They're still yellow light right now to burn red shirt. But Corey Smith looked very good out there. Kid has wheels that moved down the sideline, was really explosive. So overall, good stuff on the offensive side of the ball. Defensively, you want to talk about that?
Yeah. Well, I just want to quickly say Singleton's last run came in the 3rd quarter. And that was before Penn State began to pull its starters, so I think it's safe to say that there is some sort of injury going on there. But at the same time, I think the guys who were behind him, whether Corey Smith or Quentin Martin, I think show that they can perform and compete against Big Ten competition, especially Corey with the 70-whatever yard run there at the end of the 4th quarter. So I think if you're Penn State, you're not super worried about your depth there at running back. But yeah, transitioning over to
don't transition just yet. Wide receivers stepped up today. I know we just completely forgot about it, but obviously they went for 3 catches for 49 yards against Ohio State last week. Harrison Wallace had exceeded that total, going with 4 receptions at over 50 yards pretty early into the 2nd quarter. This is a nice little bounce back effort, I thought, by the receiving corps. Julian Fleming scored his first touchdown as a Penn State Nittany Lion.
Since what, 2021?
2022 against Michigan State, back when he was an Ohio State Buckeye. So that was obviously good to see him get in the end zone. But on top of that, this was Penn State's first receiving touchdown from a wide receiver since Kent State, when Omari Evans and Liam Clifford both had a pair. And they were the last team in the Big Ten to score a touchdown from the wide receivers in conference play. So I thought that was a nice little boost. Omari Evans was quiet. Liam Clifford had a nice little 20-yard grab. Sean, former Penn State quarterback, was in attendance. They were all smiles post-game together. So I thought that was just something to note, a little step-up effort.
Okay, we almost just got ran over by a couple guys with what is it called?
Lawnmower? No, that's not a lawnmower. Air blower. Leaf blower.
We almost got ran over by guys with leaf blowers. You could probably hear them on the video. We apologize for the audio there. But we will now transition to the defense. Lyle, take it away.
Abdul Carter, pair of sacks for the 2nd consecutive game. Obviously, we've talked about issues with him. Just adapting the defensive end, a few offsides penalties early on in the year. He seemed to really come on as of late, now up to 8 sacks on the year. That's really disruptive from the defensive end spot. Penn State needed that going forward with some lack of production there. Denied Dennis Sutton was questionable. We saw him a few times tonight, kind of limited again. Didn't really do a whole lot, so that was pretty nice. Obviously, Hughes stepped up, but Jalen Reed and Zachary Wheatley, standouts in the secondary. I think we've talked about enough how with Kevin Winston Jr.'s injury, they really stepped up. But these guys, I gotta say, are NFL caliber players themselves. Kevin Winston Jr., obviously long-term injury. He's been on the sideline the past few weeks, but this is a guy who had a 1st and 2nd round draft grade, hasn't played. But I think Jalen Reed and Zachary Wheatley are just as good. Obviously, filling in for those shoes. Jalen Reed had that interception, I believe it was his 3rd of the year. Yeah, 3rd of the year.
3rd in 4 games.
Yeah, 3rd in 4 games, which is ridiculous. And Zachary Wheatley, incredible tackler, I have to say. I think he stepped up nicely. And obviously, we talked about Jalen Reed was really exceeding in that line role earlier in the season when they had KJ Winston. But playing back, it doesn't matter. Cam Miller has done an excellent job of that line spot filling in. Zion Tracy rotating a little bit. So those are my 2 standout guys on defense.
Yeah, I thought it was a pretty good showing all around. Like you mentioned, I thought Zachy had some really key tackles in open space, one-on-one, where, you know, if the guy gets past him, it's a 20, 30-yard gain, but instead it's whatever, 6 yards and stop short of the stakes. So I thought we played really well in my eyes today, and Penn State just as a whole played really well. They started to give up some yardage toward the end of the game when Washington actually turned to its backup quarterback because it wasn't finding a lot of success through the air, and I thought they moved the ball a little bit better, and Penn State maybe wasn't, you know, prepared to see that switch there. So they give up a couple field goals later in the game, and then almost give up a touchdown there at the end against Washington. But they also made some timely stops defensively, 3rd down, 4th down stops coming up big, not allowing Washington to, you know, move the chains and get a fresh set of downs. If you look at the amount of plays, I don't have the exact numbers in front of me, but I bet Penn State nearly doubled Washington in plays today, just because they were on the field for so much longer. And, you know, flipping to the other side offensively, Penn State converted on, I think it was 10 of 13 3rd downs. So Penn State obviously did a good job of moving the sticks. That was something that Drew Allar talked about after last week against Ohio State, where they did, you know, a much worse job, obviously, here in this same building. And a completely different result this week. It was also a very fast start on both sides of the ball. Penn State came out and scored a touchdown on 4 consecutive drives to open the game, which was a pretty impressive start. They went up 28, I believe 28-0 at the half. Yeah, just a great start defensively. Obviously shut out the Huskies to get going at the beginning of the game there. And that streak of touchdowns was only ruined by a Tyler Warren fumble.
Rare miscue.
A very rare mishap by Tyler Warren, who other than that had a very strong game.
Per usual.
Yeah, per usual. Just, you know, the typical Tyler Warren experience today. James Franklin made the case for the Mackey Award and said he doesn't see how, you know, anyone else could be leading that race at this point, and I tend to agree with him. I mean, you know, Bowling Green's Harold Fannin, who Penn State saw earlier in the season, maybe has a case, but outside of that, I think it's a 2-horse race at this point, and you know, Tyler Warren, given the strength of schedule playing in the Big Ten and everything like that, probably might give him an edge in that situation. I believe he was named either semi-finalist or finalist for that award earlier this week as well. So obviously he's in the mix there, and he's been a huge piece for Penn State. It was good to see him get back involved after, you know, not using him as much against Ohio State last weekend. And I think if you're Penn State, this is just a feel-good win because, you know, there was talk about this potentially being a letdown spot, potential upset potential, just because of the disappointment following, you know, last week's result. And I think Penn State kind of squashed that early, jumped out of the gates to a big lead, never really looked back. Obviously, you know, Washington pulled it a little bit closer kind of toward the end, and Penn State's offense trailed off a bit, especially once, you know, Singleton went out and once they started pulling the starters. But regardless, it was still a pretty good performance from start to finish. And you got to see some of the depth pieces come in for Penn State at the end, who looked pretty good as well. So an all-around solid performance. We do have to touch on Ryan Barker, who missed his first field goal attempt of the season today. He was due to miss one.
They iced him.
They did ice him.
He hit it the first time.
So he was due to miss one. He had been perfect throughout the start of the season. I think it was 44 yards, something like that, 45. So, you know, not a gimme by any means, but obviously one that you would like to see him make. But regardless of that, obviously Penn State gets the win. They're back in the win column. You know, I think it kind of helps just mentally to move on from that Ohio State game with a big win like they had today. And then down the stretch, obviously Penn State will be favored in this last few games, hoping to close out the season strong. But I think, you know, they took a big step in the right direction today. They were kind of humming on all sides of the ball. So a big win for Penn State for the program against, you know, a Washington team that just beat USC, was coming in with a little bit of momentum. So that's it for our post-game breakdown. If you enjoyed the video, please don't forget to like and subscribe. It really helps us out. We'll see you guys next week.
Thank you for checking out this content from Post-Gazette Sports. If you watch this video on YouTube, please like the video and subscribe to our channel. For all of the sports coverage the Post-Gazette has to offer, visit post-gazette.com.